Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football content. We've got a Dynasty trade breakdown today. Let's jump into trade number one. So here we have 1 QB, 10 teams, start 9, half PPR, tight end premium. A.J. Brown or the 105, 109, and 110. The wide receiver core has all these players. So let's start with the rest of the team first. It doesn't necessarily matter that you have Amon-Ra, London, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, Jason, and Adams. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't really change my thinking. Either way, we're certainly past the point of paying this for A.J. Brown. But it doesn't mean that we just accept the incoming offer straight away. It's a good offer, but it's not a snap accept. I'd like to push for one more second or have one of the picks be earlier. Again, it's a good lesson. You have to know when to be greedy and when to just snap accept. And this is a moment, I think, to be greedy. So I would try to be a little bit greedy, but at the end of the day, if it's this or nothing, I don't mind taking this, although the 10 team makes me want the stud player a little bit more. Next one. Trey McBride for the 112 and 204 and 1 QB. I'm basically going to be forced to draft Brock Bowers. We'll talk about that because of how the board is going to fall. So wondering if this is enough to move off of Trey. It's an easy reject for me. McBride doesn't even turn 25 until November. He had 81 catches and 825 yards and 3 touchdowns on a broken offense in a part-time role last year. He's a difference maker. It's not even a super flex league. So 112 and 204, they're not impressive players to me. I find this offer to be pretty bad. Also, going back to Brock Bowers, I don't see what the problem is with having Bowers and McBride on a dynasty roster. Why can't you have both? I don't really see that as an issue. Again, it's okay to have a strength at overly abundance of strength at one position. There's no problem with that. We're not going to make a bad trade to fix that problem. We can make a good trade if it corrects that problem. We're not going to make a bad trade to correct that problem. Next up, and I thought this was interesting because I talked about buying Kendre Miller on a recent buys episode. And here we go. Kendre Miller or a 25 mid to late second. Now, I have a few issues here. One, we know. Do we really know that the 25 pick is going to be mid to late? Maybe. Things are starting to shape up a little more than they were in January. Maybe. But we can't be 100% sure. Secondly, Miller's rookie year was horrible. He didn't do anything. He had like one game, less than 200 yards, just 10 catches. Alvin Kamara is not going anywhere for 2024. So Miller cost a mid-second in the 23 draft. I'm fine buying him if he costs less. Not the same. I don't want to pay the same thing now for someone who had a miserable rookie year. At the end of the day, while I do think there are exceptions, generally players who are mostly healthy and bust as badly as Miller did in his rookie year end up being bad. So I'd be willing to pay maybe a couple of thirds, but not a second for Miller. He should come at a discount. That's buying low. This is not low. Next one, and he was in the news. He was on the part of our sales video. Would you trade the 24-208 for Ty Chandler in a 1 QB PPR? Seems like he's worth more than 308, but he might be the guy there. So I do feel like I'm picking on Chandler a lot recently, but he's an easy sell. These two offers, though, the idea of the 208 and the 308, get us into the idea of every player has a price. Yes, it's rare that there are any valuable players at the 308 in any class, no matter how deep it is, no matter how good it is. So, yes, I would take Chandler over the 308, but I'm not giving any second for Chandler. He's not a buy target for me. Turns 26 in May, 461 career rushing yards, and Alexander Mattison flopped in this offense as the presumed starter in 2023 with a far better previous track record. I'm not running it back with someone who's entirely unproven, same coaching staff, who could just decide that someone else is a starter at any time. But yes, every player has his price. It's probably closer to 308 than 208. But, mid, early third is probably about right. Not 208. So that kind of summarizes that. Last one. And I think this one is very interesting. 12-team Superflex, Patrick Mahomes, 106 and 112, or CJ Stroud, 104 and 111. Now, Patrick Mahomes, I feel like used to have what I would call a mythical value. But in 2023, he kind of fell off a little bit. He had just 4,183 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and 0 rushing touchdowns. So he wasn't quite as good in 2023. Now, I know there weren't as many receivers, but, it's been a long time since his mythical 2028 season. Now, in this rookie class, I think there are 5 premium assets. The 5 of them. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors. While I like Rome Odunze, I like Brock Bowers. This isn't tight end premium, so Odunze. I don't think that 106 is in the same group. So as crazy as it is, I'm fine moving off Mahomes even for this. I see CJ Stroud in the same tier as Patrick Mahomes. Let's not forget what CJ Stroud did. He turned Nico Collins into a star. He had a very similar line to Mahomes this year. Very similar. Fewer interceptions, 8.2 yards per attempt. It's better yards per game than Mahomes this year because Stroud played 1 fewer game. It's better yards per attempt than any of Justin Herbert's seasons. So we're talking about a player who's elite, who's already shown more upside than Justin Herbert, who we all evaluate as a first-round starter pick. So Stroud, I think, is clearly a tier above that, which means he's in the top tier. He's an elite player, and he should be treated in trades as such. Lastly, at some point, age does matter with quarterbacks. Now, Mahomes is not old. Stroud is 6 years younger. I still prefer Mahomes, even with the 6-year age gap. But it does matter at least a little bit because there is going to come a point at which Mahomes' value is going to start to erode. I don't know when that is, at 31, 32. People start to think about it. So for those reasons, and because he's been elite, Stroud's fully in the elite tier of QBs to me. So I'm fine making this deal, even though it's not that much back. You can probably get more, but if push comes to shove, I would take it. Now, I want to thank all of my patrons for delivering these questions in the Patreon Discord. All these trades came from my Patreon Discord. And if you want to ask me Dynasty trades, it will be done in the Patreon Discord. This were 5 of them. I think there's maybe been 30 in the last 2 weeks. So I picked a few interesting ones to read on the video. But all questions in all of these Dynasty trade breakdowns come from the Patreon. I'm not going to be doing it on Twitter anymore. I'm just not. I just don't see the point. It just doesn't work. I can't get the context. I can't get a real discussion and a debate. And I feel like a lot of the time people take advantage of me on there. So if you want the trade breakdowns, it will be done on the Patreon. And then I will pick some to do additional breakdowns from the Patreon on these videos. Now, additionally, I have some questions from the patrons for this video. And those also come from my Patreon Discord. And I have a feature where you can ask me advanced questions. And of course, sign up there, patreon.com/fantasyadvice. And with that said, let's get into those Patreon questions. What are your thoughts on first-round QB statistical hit rates, and what 2024 quarterbacks are you betting on with a high confidence level that will overcome what people say is 50-50 hit rate? I talked about this in the Patreon Discord, which, again, encouragement to sign up. My thoughts are that it's garbage. It's garbage analysis. It groups all first-round quarterbacks together. We know that's not the case. Top 5 picks are very different from those picked from 17 to 32. It's all crap. Essentially, in this class, I see Caleb Williams as a mortal lock. Drake May would be a fine number 1 overall pick in most years. And Jaden Daniels is riskier, but has insane fantasy upside. JJ McCarthy is kind of meh by comparison to those 3, but that doesn't mean that he's bad. He would have been best quarterback in the 2022 class by a lot, for example. That's kind of what I think about that. Should we make anything about Caleb Williams' medical files or his dad's comments? So a lot of people I see don't like Caleb Williams because, I don't know, because they can't find anything to criticize about his play on the field, so they find other things to criticize. In your lives, we do a terrible job of evaluating the character of people we actually know. We don't do a good job of that, let alone people we've never met. So, no, I have zero concerns about any of these nonsense comments. Whenever you actually heard Caleb Williams at the NFL Combine, you saw on video, I didn't see any concerns. He looked like a normal person to me. I didn't see any concerns, zero. So the answer is no, zero concerns. And anyone telling you otherwise just wants attention. They just want clicks. They need something to talk about, so they're providing something to talk about. They don't know what they're talking about. That's my take on these concerns about Caleb Williams. It's all bullshit. What is JJ McCarthy's floor and upside? Good question. This is a good question. I feel like his floor being a flop. He's not a guarantee at all. He could just not translate. He doesn't have a track record of actually throwing the ball a lot in college. He does not have that. I'm not saying that means he can't do it, but we haven't seen it. So yeah, the floor is a washout. Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, Sam Darnold. They had their moments in the NFL, but they were washouts. They were failures. That's his floor. As for a ceiling, I can't see him being a floor raiser like Mahomes, Stroud, Joe Burrow. I think the absolute best case scenario, they're not the same player, but something like Dak Prescott has mobility. We know J.J. McCarthy can move. Good to great passer, not elite in either factor. So absolute ceiling, I think, is what Dak Prescott has given you, which would be good. We'd be very happy with that if we took that in the mid to late first round of Superflex. I mean, I'd give anything for that. I mean, if you knew you were getting it, I would take Dak Prescott's career at 101 or 102. I mean, it's a great fantasy career. So don't hear that as bad. That's pretty good. Will the RB rankings be largely dependent on draft capital for you? Did any of the running backs separate themselves after the combine? Well, they're always dependent on draft capital. But in terms of a draft capital independent eval, Trey Benson is the running back one of the guys who did something there. And Jonathan Brooks would be the RB1 if he weren't hurt. Those are the clear top two. Not even close. I expect them to be the two who go in round 2 of the NFL draft. I expect them to be my running back 1 and 2. They're very close to each other. Benson closed the gap a lot at the NFL Combine. After that, I'm open to opinions. I wouldn't be shocked if my RB3 is whoever goes RB3. The key is the difference between who goes in round 3 and who goes in round 4. Blake Corum, Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Marshawn Lloyd now, and Bucky Irving, even after the fall, are the 5 who I think have a chance to go in round 3. I don't think all 5 of them do. So whichever ones do, they'll be the ones ahead. I can guarantee you I'll have any day 2 running back ahead of any day 3 running back because I don't have strong player takes on those 5. I like a lot of them. I don't love any of them. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on the running backs. Any tight ends we should keep an eye out for besides Brock Bowers? Jatavion Sanders did not stand out at the combine. So, honestly, not really. I expect Theo Johnson. He kind of jumped into clear tight end 3 for me. But unless he goes early, mid, round 3 to a good landing spot where he can be the starter initially, I'm not taking notice. I need all of those things to happen. And then maybe I'll take him in the mid-3rd instead of the 4th. This is a year where the wide receiver depth is strong. Most of the round 3 picks will be wide receivers. Jalen Wright is Rick Spielman's RB1. Is it bad that I don't know who that is? Would be RB2 if Jonathan Brooks were healthy. What are your thoughts about him? We talked about that earlier. He's my RB3. I need to see the draft capital. I don't get the talk putting him at RB1. I have Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks way ahead. But he's my RB3 for now. He did a lot at the combine to boost his stock. Last one. What are the best things a new Dynasty player can do who joined through an expansion? Someone who's a new 11th, 12th team who acquired all the trash? Just don't do it. You can't expand a Dynasty league. For me, that's just a hard no. A league was built on being 10 teams. It was built on being 12 teams. It should stay 10 teams or 12 teams. I'm not doing any sort of expansion. That doesn't work for me. So for me, it's just don't do it. I want to thank everyone who watched the video. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I also want to thank all of my patrons for making this video possible. Every single thing we talked about came from the Patreon Discord. This episode wouldn't be possible without the patrons. And if you want to support that and what we're doing here, make sure to sign up at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. You can contribute to the Patreon Discord. You can have your question read on the next show. I read every single question in the Ask YouTube questions thread. So sign up to be a part of that. But until next time, I want to thank everyone for watching, everyone who leaves likes and comments, and everyone who subscribed. And I will see you all later. Peace out.